As we open our parish retreat today, the thought comes to us from today's gospel. Come to the feast. You are invited. God has chosen you and me. Come. Come, you are the beloved of God. Jesus tells a wonderful parable today that we heard as the gospel about a king throwing a wedding feast for his son. And the invitation was out to the chosen people, and they refused to come. And so the king wanted people to come to the feast, and he told his servants to go out and invite everybody in the streets, the good and the bad alike. Come to the feast. You are chosen. Of course, that parable is about the chosen people, the Jewish people that God had been so carefully forming and nurturing. And as today's gospel tells us, many of the leaders did not accept Jesus and his invitation. So the invitation was thrown out widely to include the likes of you and me, the Gentiles, the world. And so here we are. This gospel tells us that the life of faith is to be a life of joy. It's a wedding feast to which we are invited, not a funeral feast. Joy is to be at the center of our lives because God has chosen us. We are the beloved of God, always. When people think that living a life of faith means that you have to wear a sour puss all the time, that's not authentic Christianity. One of the spiritual writers had said one time, there's no such thing as a sad saint. Now that doesn't mean we don't have our trials and sorrows, but we are joyful to be called, to be chosen. This parable also tells us that sometimes we can be deaf to that invitation. The summons is given, but we can tune it out. That's what a number of the people did in this parable. Notice, though, that some of those who did not accept the invitation didn't turn to something that was evil. It was just second best. They didn't refuse the invitation and then go out carousing. The parable says that one went to his farm, one went to his business. Not evil things, but things that were second best. That's where you and I can fit in. We've been given the invitation, but sometimes other things become a little more important in our estimation. Oh, I'd like to pray, but I'm a little too busy. Oh, I'd like to go to Mass on Sunday, but, well, I've got a game. Not doing something that's evil, but something that's second best, and being deaf to what is first. Come to the feast. I have chosen you, beloved. We can be so preoccupied with the messages of our secular world that we can drown out the calming voice of Jesus. We can concentrate so much on our work and activities, the temporal, that we can forget about what is eternal. As that saying goes, we can be so busy making a living that we don't make a life. Come to the feast. This is what is most important. and everything else follows from this. This parable is also telling us that the punishment, the condemnation that the man who was not wearing the wedding garment received, centered in his realizing what he could have had and passed up. He was invited, but he didn't follow through with what that invitation involved. That man came to the wedding feast, but refused to wear a wedding garment. He could have. What is that telling us? It's telling us something that is a warning to you and me. Sometimes we can think, well, I've accepted the Lord's invitation, but I'm going to continue just on as I already am. Thank you very much. No change is necessary for me. No conversion is necessary in my life. I'm fine the way I am. Lord, take me as you find me. Where the Lord wants to clothe us in the garments for the banquet of holiness, becoming like Him. Come to the feast and wear the garment. Receive me. Become like me. The condemnation that that man received of being bound and sent outside, that was punishment, but deep down, what was even worse, he heard the party going on inside after the doors were closed. He could have been in there, but he passed by on accepting and living the invitation. This parable also tells us about God's grace. We don't deserve to be invited. We're not entitled to be invited to become a member of God's family. That's God's initiative. And God, even though we were sinners and are sinners, still loves us and goes out to us with His grace. Like the king throwing the wedding feast for his son, God our Father reaches out to us with a wide embrace and with an open heart, inviting us, but not forcing us, but hoping that we will accept and be part of this family of His. Monsignor Moss last night told a story about himself that really touched me, and it sums up the message of this gospel. He told about when he was a little boy in the Bahamas, and when his birthday would come around, October 19th, he said, Mama would come into my bedroom on my birthday morning before I was awake, and she would awaken me from my sleep with a kiss. And Mama would say to me, Child, I am so glad that you were born. Take that illustration with you and think of it as God, our Father, loving you so much, choosing you, being pleased with you. God, awakening you with a kiss and saying to you, Child, I am so glad that you were born.